Hello everybody, welcome to this vlog. My name is Satya. Today I'll be discussing about NAT, how we discussed in the previous vlogs, in the previous videos, what are the different types of NATs, network address translation mechanisms, what is symmetric NAT, what is port restricted NAT, what is port address translation, what is network address port translation, then basically we discussed about symmetric NAT in detail in the last video. So this is an extension of it, wherein what is the disadvantage of having network address translation? It should be clear that if you use NAT, then the peer-to-peer communications like VoIP call or a video call will have lot of problems, because in network address translation your private address is translated into a public source IP, right, and a public source port, right? Then when you are setting up the connection behind the NAT to another user behind the NAT, then you will not know about what is a source public IP that will be reserved and what will be the source public port that will be reserved for further communications. So the communication may fail because you will send your private address to the other private address, to the other host behind the NAT. He will send to that private address. You will not be reachable, right? So you need a mechanism to find out what is your public IP or open certain ports to further communicate with ease, right? So this is the main disadvantage of NAT, network address translation. But there are more advantages, where we have discussed that the IPv4 address space is fast depleting. So by you adapting network address translation in the residential router, this can be resolved because private addresses are not counted in the public IPs. So if public IPs are not reserved for all the hosts on the NAT, then automatically your IPv4 depletion will be reduced. So you can use IPv4 mechanism only for a long time, right? Let's see what exactly are the remedies for network address translation. So as I discussed here, I'm telling remedies for real-time communications which are peer-to-peer and behind NAT. These peer-to-peer communications are usually voice call and VoIP call, voice call, VoIP call, and the video call. Right? Voice and VoIP are both same. Video call is different. So the first mechanism by which you can resolve this problem is stun server. What exactly stun server means? Stun server can be called as session traversal utilities for NAT server. Before establishing peer-to-peer communication, host behind NAT sends request to stun server to determine the public IP and the public port that will be used for further communication. How it is done is, stun server in the public network replies with the source public IP and source public port that will be used for the same communication that a peer-to-peer communication will use. This will be picked by the host behind NAT and advertises in the peer-to-peer communication setup. So as we know, in the peer-to-peer communications like VoIP call, if the control protocol used is session initiation protocol, then you have to first establish the connection. To establish the connection, the peer-to-peer nodes or hosts should tell them what port they will be listening on, right? Or the what IP they will be listening on and what port they will be listening on. Using the stun server which is installed in the public internet, you send a message to the stun server saying that what IP will I be using when traversing my packet in the public internet. The stun server will respond saying this will be your public IP and public port, right? So using that, a session, the initiating host will set up a session with the other peer-to-peer host behind the NAT, right? So what are the disadvantages of having stun server? If stun server fails, then the communication will also lag or will fail, the peer-to-peer communication. And if somebody hacks into stun server, then they will know what port you are using and they can hijack your communication to a different PC, right, in the public internet, and they can listen to your voice call or video call, right? So these are the disadvantages of stun server. And the prediction also of the public port and public port, which are source public port and source public IP, should be correct. If they predict wrong, then it will be problematic. In symmetric NAT, as you know, each connection establishes a public port, right? So in that case, this stun server will fail, right? To overcome this problem, we use another mechanism called as turn server. Turn server is called as traversal using relays around NAT. When stun server fails, then this fallback mechanism, that is relay server, will be used, which are called as turn servers. So what they will do is the communication is relayed through the turn server, used as fallback when stun server fails, right? The due to the use of relay, right, the bandwidth on the relay server should be really high, right? So, and if turn server relay fails, then there is no other way a communication can be set up. So due to the use of relay, the packets, all the packets should go through a separate public server, which may, depending upon the bandwidth on that relay server, your packets may be delayed or lagged. So there will be lag in your voice call or video call, right? So turn server is a solution, and it will give solution even to the symmetric NAT solution. But the problem is, if the turn server fails, then the relaying of the packets will also fail, and if bandwidth on the turn server is low, then there will be lag and delay in the voice call and video call. Okay, so these are the two mechanisms by which we can avoid NAT problems in real-time communications. What is the third type? Third type is called as UPNP, which is famously installed in many residential routers. It is called as universal plug and play. Using this mechanism, host behind NAT sends request to residential router to reserve some ports for peer-to-peer communication. Like for example, for voice call, I want to reserve this public port. They can reserve it, right? So when communication happens in peer-to-peer, in peer-to-peer communication, these ports are known to the host end, right? That is, a end host will know what public ports will be used, because residential router sent saying these are the reserved ports by you for this communication. Then it can easily set up the communication, right? Major drawback is security. If your host, that is establishing peer-to-peer communication, has malware or security threat, then all your sessions will be hijacked, right? Because it may ask some ports to be reserved, and that port may be hijacked to a different PC. So there is a huge security risk when we use UPnP. There is a security risk for all the mechanisms, but the only thing is, for real-time communications behind NAT, this is what is required, right? Or we have to use port address translation, right, where all the private IPs will be translated to one public IP and one public port, right? So then you will know what exactly is a port, and you install some firewall mechanism to block incoming security threat related packets, right? So this is how you have to secure your network. So what you have to do for your safety in the personal computers is always have firewall and virus enabled. Firewall blocks these malware kind of functionalities, right? If it breaches the firewall, the malware, and it gets installed in the PC, then the actual virus scanner, right? For example, there are different virus scanners which will scan for the virus or malware in the PC, and it will remedy that, it will give remedy to that solution, right? So the first thing is, firewall has to be proper. Firewall will block all the threat packets. If somehow threat packets breach and reach your host and gets and try to install or take over the PC, then your antivirus software will come into picture and stop these malwares and the viruses from taking over your host PC. So this is what I wanted to discuss, friends, as part of this vlog. If you want to know how to install stun server, how to install turn server, or how to understand your universal plug and play works in the residential router, do comment. If you like the content, please like and also subscribe to this channel. Okay, if you have some problem or you didn't like the video, please put a comment saying that we didn't like the video, then I can suggest what are the improvements, so that I can do those improvements technically or the way I present. Okay, thank you very much. Take care. Bye.